IELTS Part 124. Good evening, I'm Professor Williams, and this class is Introduction to Anthropology. This class meets every Tuesday evening from 6:45 until 8:15. Please be on time for each class session. This evening we'll begin with a discussion of hunter-gatherer societies. This is an important topic because at one time all humans were hunter-gatherer. What are hunter-gatherer societies? They are groups of people that survive by hunting animals and gathering plants to eat. Typically, in these societies, the men's job is to hunt large animals, while the women both gather the plants and hunt smaller animals. Before 12,000 years ago, all humans lived as hunter gatherers. Now, there are relatively few groups of people living in this way, but there are some. Experts estimate that in about 50 years or so, all such groups will have disappeared. Today, hunter gatherer societies still exist in Arctic, in some desert areas, and in tropical rainforest. These are the areas where other forms of food production, namely agriculture, are too difficult because of the climate, of course. Narrator, before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at question 37 to 40 on page 280. Now listen carefully and answer questions 37 to 40. Question 37 to 40. In history, many hunter gatherer societies eventually developed into farming societies. What are some of the basic differences between the hunter gatherers and farmers? The first is that the hunter gatherers tend to be nomadic. They travel from place to place. Once they have used up the food in one area, they have to move on to the next place to find more. The farmers, on the other hand, are more likely to be sedentary. They can't move often because, of course, they have to stay in one place long enough to plant their crops and harvest them. Another difference is that the hunter gatherer societies generally have lower population densities. Farming can support much higher population densities than hunting gathering can because farming results in a larger food supply. So you'll find smaller groups among hunter gatherers. Another very important difference in social structure, a characteristics of hunter gatherer society is that they tend not to have hierarchical social structures. They usually don't have surplus food or surplus anything. If they did, they would have no place to keep it since they move around so often. So, in a hunter gatherer society, there is little ability to support full time leaders. Everybody has to spend their time looking for food. These societies are more egalitarian than farming societies, where we see hierarchical social structures begin to develop. Please bear in mind that everything I have said so far this evening is of a general nature. Next, we'll look at some of the specific example of hunter-gatherer societies to see how these general concerns translate into reality. Narrator, that is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers. You will now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet. Pause CD for 10 minutes. This is almost the end of the test. You now have 1 minute to check all your answers. Pause CD for 1 minute. That is the end of listening section for Model Test 2. Model Test 3. IELTS listening. Model Test 3. You will hear a number of different recordings and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. Write all your answers in the listening question booklet. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet Now turn to section 1 on page 316.